God morgon, god morgon. Vi ska köra igång vårt program här under förmiddagen. Jag kommer vara moderator här fram till lunch. Mats Hård heter jag. Jag driver till vardags ett finansmediehus som heter Finwire. Och jag sitter även i styrelsen för den här fina och viktiga organisationen. Vi ska börja med läkemedel idag. Och första bolaget kommer att prata om diabetes. Vi har PILA PHARMA på scen och deras vd Gustav H. Välkommen.
Tack.
Kör igång.
I will do this presentation in English, primarily because my Swedish will likely not be great enough to explain some of the things that we will touch upon. But my name is Gustav H. I am the CEO of PILA PHARMA, and we are developing a novel oral solution for treatment of type 2 diabetes and possibly more metabolic conditions like, for example, cardiovascular disease and, who knows, potentially obesity, which is, of course, very popular right now. So to those of you who don't know this or about us, we were founded in 2014 by Ms. Dorte Gram. Ms. Gram has an extensive background from obesity pharmacology at Novo Nordisk in Denmark and discovered this new mechanism of action of treating diabetic mice with capsaicin during her PhD thesis at Novo Nordisk, and decided to pursue this novel mechanism that was not described in the literature. However, Novo Nordisk decided to close down small molecules divisions shortly after, and Dorte was allowed to purchase out the patents surrounding this new technology. So in 2014, she founded PILA PHARMA, and since then we've made great strides to get to where we are today. In 2021, we listed on NASDAQ First North, so if you want to have a look at us, you can search for #PILA. I'm sure it's going to look fairly great the last 3 months, maybe not so much if you look on the entirety of our period, but of course it's been a tough few years for small listed biotechs with no marketed products. So I'll just move on a little bit just to show that she knows what a good diabetes drug is about. So Dorte has been on the patents for both GLP-1s. She was the scientist that pointed at the molecule that is now semaglutide at Novo Nordisk and a huge blockbuster drug. And she was also on the once-weekly insulin project there. So we have a molecule that is originally developed by Bayer in Germany. So it's developed back in the mid-zeros, and it's relatively old because of this. But it also means that it has a very nice and big package when it comes to safety, and it's been in around 300 patients by now. So this has traditionally been a pain target, like TRPV1 antagonists were traditionally used to treat painful indications. However, there has always been a lot of associated side effects, primarily in the sense of having increased body temperature. Of course, this is not ideal if you're trying to treat sick people. You don't want them to suddenly become, have fever. So a lot of these antagonists have been discarded throughout time. However, we can see that the molecule that we are working with has a very nice and tolerable safety profile. We do see temperature increases, but it's relatively mild, at least at the dosing level that we're at currently. So Biotest took it to man, and they decided that they did not want to pursue this any further. They sold it off to a British biotech that took it into 3 different indications, among others urology, with overactive bladder disease. They tried in chronic cough, and they always find good safety, but not efficacy. So that allowed us to buy it very cheap in 2016. So I want to move on a little bit just to showcase a little bit about the diabetes market. So this is not by no means a blue ocean. There is a lot of diabetes medications out there. Nowadays, the primary ones are likely going to be DPP-4, SGLT2s, and nowadays GLP-1s as well. The thing is, of course, that GLP-1s are the next generation type of molecules that also comes with a bunch of added benefits, among others, like very heavy decreases in body weight. And this, of course, also comes with quite a cost for the consumer and for the countries involved. So we hope that we can, at least on the efficacy parameters, be comparable to some of these. But of course, this is something that we're working on right now. We're in phase 2, so this is the time that we need to start looking into market access and where does this product actually fit into this pyramid. So I can show you that we spend most of our money on clinical research and not on graphic designers. So I made this myself, but it's just to showcase how big of the markets we are talking about. So it's quite difficult to dissect exactly, how much each individual market is worth or how much each drug could potentially be worth, because you're likely going to have beneficial effects on more than just one thing. So if you have an effect on obesity, you're likely going to have a beneficial effect on cardiovascular disease as well as diabetes. If you have an effect on diabetes, you're likely going to have an effect on cardiovascular disease, et cetera, et cetera. So we just want to showcase that this is a huge market, and even if you get a fraction of it, it's still likely going to be a very interesting investment case. And just to showcase a little bit more, until a few years ago, and I made this myself, so sorry if it's a little bit sketchy in the edges, but until a few years ago, this diabetes market was relatively unattractive for many companies. It's very expensive to run diabetes trials, but this has all been flipped around with the introduction of obesity as a new indication. Primarily in the US is where we see that this is funded, and this is where there's really traction. But it means that nowadays it's not just Novo Nordisk and Eli Lilly anymore. We have a huge range of new companies trying to rush in and grab a portion of this market. And of course, we would like to be in that group as well. But so far, we don't have any data on obesity. So I think that's very important to clarify. However, at least internally, we believe that we could potentially have an effect on regulating body weight as well. So hopefully I can update this sometime in the coming years. But a little bit about diabetes. I mean, diabetes is on the rise globally. I mean, this is not news to most people who follow health patterns, I would guess. So this is not a problem that's going to go away in the next couple of years. There's still going to be demand for good medication on a global basis, especially medication that is deliverable in an oral fashion, because GLP-1s are primarily designed as injectables, and they need to be kept refrigerated, and they need to be kept stored in special conditions, and they need to have insurance on the transport because they're so attractive. So if you want to fix the world problems, you're likely going to have to use an oral solution which you can mass produce. And of course, there's a lot of activity now, as I showcased before. There's the big ones, but they are trying to scoop up everything that could be of interest for them to further develop, but equally so to keep off competition for the market. So this is, of course, something that's super interesting, that we see companies from left, right, and center trying to get in on anything that even remotely resembles effect on either body weight regulation or potentially other things like cardiovascular disease. And I think that the main reason I took this one is to also showcase that, okay, we have a huge number of diabetics worldwide that have been diagnosed, but there's also an enormous number of people who are undiagnosed and therefore unregulated as well. So according to this, I would say it's roughly 240 million people worldwide that walk around not knowing that they have type 2 diabetes. So it would be great if, let's say, the doctors had the option of prescribing a drug that could potentially help regulate these people from when they figure out that they are diabetic. Ideally, you don't want to push somebody on GLP-1 agonists from the get-go, because it's a lifetime treatment and it's going to be expensive for everyone in the long run. So more affordable and more accessible solutions are definitely needed on a global stage. Yeah, and this is just to further support that there's really a lot of people who are diagnosed that don't get the adequate treatment that they need. So a little bit about us. So we have a small pipeline of 3 different projects. We, of course, have diabetes with potential effects in obesity and in heart failure. This is something that we pursue very aggressively right now. We're very prudent when it comes to our spending, but we're also very opportunistic when it comes to trying to look at who could potentially have an interest in a drug like this. We also have a Orphan Drug Designation in the US, which is a rare disease. This is for a painful condition called Erythromelalgia. until last year, we did not find significant pharma interest in this project. However, we're starting to see more companies showing interest now that we can showcase them that this molecule is actually quite safe when it comes to this group of molecules called TLPV1 antagonists. So this is of course interesting and something that we're working on a little bit right now. And we also have a small preclinical study with a university up here in Uppsala, near Stockholm, for a cardiovascular disease called abdominal aortic aneurysm. This is still in the very early phases, so I don't really have that much to tell you about this so far. But of course, it would be very beneficial if we can show effect on this. This is a disease that kills about 1% of all men globally. So it is quite a costly disease, and there's no current treatment for this, so we would have a very preferable position. So a little bit about the data we have so far. So this is based on a phase 2A trial that we ran in type 2 diabetic patients a couple years ago, and it basically showcases that we, over a very short amount of time, we improve the insulin secretion, and we also have improvements in blood glucose levels. I need to make sure that you understand that this is on a very small amount of patients. It's only 23 patients, and it's with a relatively mild strength of the drug. We can see that diabetic patients can actually tolerate more of the drug than we anticipated. So this is something that we're going to assess in the next clinical trial, which I'll get to. We also had a trend for reduction of what's called HbA1c, which is long-term blood glucose. However, most scientists would agree that in order to measure HbA1c, you would need to have 3 months of data. This is based on 4 weeks, so a third. So we have a good trend, but it's not statistically significant results that could tell us that this is actually working. At least not to the point where a pharma company would like to partner with us. But, however, we did see a very significant decrease in a biomarker for a cardiovascular indication. Specifically, it's heart failure. So this is what kills diabetic people, most likely. I mean, you don't die from diabetes, you die from the complications, and heart failure is one of these. So we did see a very significant decrease in this biomarker. We're not cardiologists, so we don't know this biomarker that much in detail yet. However, it is our impression that it could play a very substantial role in regulating whether you have a bigger or a smaller chance of developing heart failure with time. And just to showcase a little bit about, so yeah, as I told you a little bit in the past, we have run a lot of trials in the past. So there's a lot of safety data, and this is of course very good when you're looking to bring a new drug to market in very sick patients. So we are looking to do a dose escalation trial as the next one. This is where we're going to explore how high can we go, how hard can we actually push these patients before side effects become too severe, and where we can still have good results on the different biomarkers that we have assessed in the past. So this will take place in the next 12 months, and we expect to have results sometime in Q2 next year. So this is, of course, very soon. And then, of course, there's phase 2B and then phase 3 afterwards, which are much more heavy and costly affairs, but we can take that next year. So yeah, this is just to prioritize. And I like to use the idea of a scope on a rifle to say that when we dose escalate, it is with the purpose of establishing where the safety limit is, like where is the ceiling. So we need to basically zoom in to make sure that we find the right dose for the next phase, so that we are sure that we get the best possible results in the phase 2B. It would not make sense to rush in with a dose that is too low where we cannot get a significant readout. So we are planning to try out multiple different dosings, and of course this is going to take place over the next 12 months. And we are very hopeful that we could also have an indicational readout on whether this works in regulating body weight, as well as hopefully replicating data on this biomarker for heart failure. And I always like to take a little bit of data, financial data with me regarding how our company compares to some of our peers. So I've taken A couple of companies here. You have Gubra from Denmark, which is the yellow one. It's a CRO that is also now involved in running their own clinical trials for drugs. So they're slowly becoming a pharmaceutical company as well. They are in phase 1 in obesity, and they have, of course, witnessed huge growth in investor interest in the last 12 months. The same with Zealand Pharma in Denmark. They have a project ongoing with Boehringer Ingelheim, which is now in phase 3. And it's going very well for them. And they've, of course, also had very large influxes of investors over time. And we can see now that somehow investors are starting to turn their attention to us. Whether that is because of our relatively low share price, or because the project is good, or because the project is oral, it's hard to say. But we are, of course, I get quite a few messages and calls from investors who are very happy to see a trend that is not downwards. It has been a couple of tough years. And just to showcase, this is actually year to date. So we are looking at a quite good development, as I would put it, as a private investor in the company as well. So this is just to hopefully invite you all to come along on the ride. Of course, there's no guarantee of anything, but we're working hard every day to make sure that we have a project that could be very valuable within a year or two, very likely. Yeah, so we're on a good path, and we're going in the right direction. That's certainly the feeling now heading into summer. And yeah, just to summarize again, we have results next year, Q2 2025. And this, I think, would be the most important near-term milestone. Of course, there's going to be some news on the way, but this is like a primary milestone we're looking at. So a little bit about the board. I don't have that much time. I have about 1 minute. So a little bit about the board. We have, of course, Dorte, who's the founder. She's the inventor of the principle. She's the brain behind the project. She knows how this needs to be sliced. And she took the board position here in April. We also got 2 new members. We got Julie and Lasse, who have come with significant experience in marketing products, both for Novo Nordisk and for Eli Lilly and Sanofi. So they have knowledge of how to market diabetes products, and this is, of course, a very important exercise that we're looking to have to do now that we're getting into even later stages. And we have a small management team, but we make do. Dorte, who's the chairman, is also our chief science officer. She's the brain. So she's a working chairman, if you will. And I think that's it's very nice to be able to share the experience together. So that's all for me for now. We have some time for questions, I believe, as well. So I hope you enjoyed. And if you have any questions, just ask out or reach out afterwards.
Stort tack så mycket, Gustav. Jag tänker att jag gör ett försök att ta detta. Vi hade danska anställda förr, och vi hade en som Annabella, hon tyckte att man pratade skandinaviska.
Yeah. Jag kan pröva.
Så försöker vi i alla fall. Annars tar vi på engelska. Jättespännande. Jag tänker lite grann så här, endgame för oss. För er. Vad är det? Är det att ni tar ett preparat genom alla faser och ut i marknaden, eller tänker ni, vad är endgame?
Det är ju en möjlighet, hvis vi kan få in den kapital, det krävs. Fase 3 i diabetes, det är kanske 1 milliard svenska kronor. Så det är en tung process. Og just nu på First North, vi har jo ikke en market cap, som gør, at vi kan være med der. Så vi skal jo bygge op noget value. Jeg er selv lidt jeg tror helt klart internt, at der er en tro på, at vi kan køre det hele væggen, om vi vil, og om vi kan. Det mest oplagte er jo at få en partner, en større big pharma partner, som har kapacitet og interesse til at køre studien. Sponsorere studier, sponsorere udvikling af API, den aktive farmaceutiske ingrediens. Tage over udvikling af, lad os sige, hele det her development omkring molekylet, altså hvilken type af tablet skal det gøres i og sådan. Så der findes mange muligheder. Jeg tror helt klart, at der vil være, altså om vi kan fremvise bra resultat over 3 måneder, så har vi mange indikationer på, at mange vil være mycket interesseret. Så lad os se, men der er et par stik ind, før vi er der.
Jag tänker på det här med oral behandling. Hur ser konkurrensen ut inom det området? Alltså, vad finns det för jag menar, det borde finnas andra intressenter, tänker jag, i...
Ja, der er ikke så mange, som gør... altså, der er jo ingen andre, som gør en TRPV1-antagonist til sådan metaboliske sygdomme, som det her er. Der er vi de eneste. Så om vi har nogle ting, der fungerer, men så har vi en unik position. Men det er klart, at der er mange andre typer af molekyler, som vil være konkurrenter på det sæt. Og der måste man jo tænke på, jamen hvor passer man ind der, og det er den proces, vi står med nu, også med de 2 nye styrelsesledamøter, Lasse og Julie, som kommer til at hjælpe til med at shape hele strategien om, hvor vi skal passe ind, og hvor kan vi være unikke i den her kæmpe gruppe af lægemidler. Der findes jo redan orale lægemidler til type 2 diabetes, så vi skal jo helst være bedre end dem.
Ja, men jag förstår. Du har ju varit vd sedan en liten tid tillbaka. Hur är det med eget aktieägande i bolaget?
Ja, men jeg var jo også involveret i företaget før jeg blev vd, så jeg kender jo en del af aktieægerne fra tidligere. Men det er jo super spændende, og det er jo bra at kunne fremvise en aktie, som går op. Altså, vi har jo ikke kommuniceret så mycket, så der er jo mange aktionærer, som pludselig ringer til mig for at fråga, hvad er det, som henter? Ni kommunicerer ingenting, og den går op 10% hver dag. Så det er jo, der er mange nye grejer for mig. Men jeg tykker, at vi er kommet bra fra start. Og nu skal vi jo bare fortsætte. Altså, det er jo, som jeg nævnte, da jeg kom ind, altså, vi måste jo bare køre på. Altså, om vi ikke tror på det, så er der ingen andre, der tror på det. Så vi er super positive og ambitiøse og opportunistiske.
Jag tänker så här att det har varit en ganska tuff marknad att resa kapital.
Ja, det har været helt håbløst.
Ja, och finns det liksom en praktisk påverkan på er för det? Jag tänker på det här Orphan Drug...
altså Orphan Drug ville have været super bra, men vi kunne ikke hitte interesse omkring det. Det er jo endda en ting, vi kan gøre, om der pludselig findes interesse. Men jeg vil sige, altså, vi har jo haft en præference og en strategi om ikke at ville udspætte eksisterende aktionærer helt ekstremt. Vi har ikke ville, hvad skal man sige, have hjælp til nogen heller. Så vi har jo på sin vis har vi jo klaret de sidste 2 år med vældig liten penge, kanskje for liten til tider. Der har også været lidt, altså der har været lidt kontakt med investerere, som frågar hvorfor vi ikke går ud med en 40-30 emission og udspætter alle med 50% og får de penge ind, som vi skal. Men det har i vores optik har det været for dyrt. Altså det har simpelthen ikke været det værd at skulle tage 20 millioner kroner ind, for så at skulle betale 10 millioner i omkostninger.
Ja,
det giver ingen mening for os. Nej. Så vi har jo gjort nogle direkte emissioner til vores aktionærer, og vi har fået lidt penge ind her og lidt penge ind der. Tyvärr ikke altid super mycket, men nok til at vi er her i dag, og vi er jo kommet ud nu med en hvad skal man sige, med et marked, som virkelig shapes omkring metaboliske sygdomme. Og vi kommer ud uden hjælp. Altså vi har jo ikke en kæmpe cash balance, men vi har jo ikke heller, altså vi har jo ingen forpligtelser heller. Vi skal jo ikke rejse penge nu for at tilbagebetale nogle ting, som mange andre foretag, som vi ser på First North. Så vi tykker, at vi er i en bra position på det sæt, at vi ikke er afhængige af nogen andre.
Nej, just det. Og vårda kapitalet.
Ja, præcis. Altså, så som jeg nævnte, vi er prudent. Altså vi tænker vældig mycket på, hvor vi bruger vores penge. Og det er 98% går til klinisk forskning. Og så lidt til lønner. Ja. Men vi hører jo heller ikke så mange. Altså, vi er jo ikke skabt til at skulle betale lønner til folk heller. Altså, vi er sat i verden for at komme med et nyt drug og at kunne give en god case for investerere. Det er det primære.
Det får bli slutord. Stort tack för att du kom, Gustav.
Tack.
Tack.